Hi, welcome back. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss session factory creation in Hibernate 5. Now for this set of tutorials, I have used following tools and technologies: Hibernate 5.2.11 Final, Eclipse, Mars 2, 4.5.2, maven 3.3.3, Java Enterprise Edition 1.8 and MySQL 5.0.22. Now if you are using even Java Standard Edition, that is okay. These are the two system requirements for Hibernate 5.2, and later versions you must have at least Java 1.8 and JDBC 4.2. So these are the different tools and technologies that you will need for developing a Hibernate 5 application. Now this is the project structure which I have followed. I have a project Hibernate Session Factory Creation, which is an example of how we can create the session factory in Hibernate 5. And then I have created these different packages within src main Java. There are two packages. One is com.tutorials.client and second is com.tutorials.util. This test.java is the client code, and in Hibernate util.java we are going to give the code for creating the session factory, and under this folder src main resources we are going to put our hibernate.cfg.xml file, and then we will provide the different dependencies in pom.xml. As this is a maven project, so we need to give the dependencies in pom.xml. Now to create a Maven project, you can select the new option from the file menu and then you can select the Maven project. Now for our example, I have given the group ID as com.tutorials and the artifact ID is the name of project itself, which I am going to give as Hibernate Session Factory Creation. Now thereafter, we need to give the different dependencies in pom.xml. I have given two dependencies. One is for MySQL connector jar file and the second one is for the Hibernate jar files. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to provide the different configurations. So for that I am going to create an XML file named as hibernate.cfg.xml, which is the default name for XML file under src main resources folder, and this code we need to provide in our Hibernate configuration file. We need to provide the doc type and then we can give the different properties within the Hibernate configuration tag, and within Hibernate configuration tag we have session factory which encloses all the property tags. Now here what all information we will provide: we will first provide the driver class, and this is com.mysql.jdbc.driver. As in this set of tutorials we will use the MySQL as our relational database. Now here one thing to be noticed is if we are using higher version of MySQL, then accordingly you need to give the com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver rather than com.mysql.jdbc.driver, and then we need to give the URL of our database with the property hibernate.connection.url. So this is the URL of the database that we are going to use for this example, and that is jdbc mysql localhost this is the port on which our MySQL is running, slash you need to give the name of the database that you want to access, and then you need to give the property username and property password, and then finally you need to give the dialect, and the dialect for different databases is different. Like in our case it is going to be org.hibernate.dialect.mysql dialect, as we are using MySQL for our database. So these all entries are required in our hibernate.cfg.xml file, and then in Hibernate utility class we will put this code of obtaining the session factory. So here what we will do, we will use the singleton concept, that is we will create only one instance of session factory, as session factory is an expensive instance. So for that we have provided this static block as we want this block to be executed at the time of class loading itself, and we have taken two reference variables here. One is standard service registry and second is session factory. We know that in Hibernate 5 if we have to obtain the session factory we need to make use of standard service registry, metadata sources and metadata. So these all steps are required to obtain a session factory, and in this class we will perform these operations. We will first invoke the standard service registry builder, and then we will invoke the configure and build method on this to obtain the standard service registry. In our previous tutorial we have discussed all these different classes and interfaces, what is standard service registry, what is metadata sources, metadata and so on. So we need to make use of standard service registry builder, and then we need to call the configure method on it and build method to invoke the standard service registry to create the instance of standard service registry. Once we have the instance of standard service registry, then we can pass this as a parameter to the metadata sources, which will return the instance of metadata sources, and this metadata sources can be used to obtain the instance of metadata by invoking the build method on get metadata builder, and this metadata instance is then used to obtain the session factory instance. We need to give metadata.get session factory builder.build. So this statement is going to return the session factory instance, and this is the code where we are checking if standard service registry is not equal to null, then we will destroy the standard service registry. Now you can see here that before executing these statements we have given one if, that is this block will be executed if and only if session factory is equal to null, that is no session factory instance has been created. But if session factory has been created earlier, then this session factory will not be null. So these statements for creating standard service registry, metadata sources, metadata and session factory will not be executed. And then finally we are going to write a method get session factory which will return this instance variable session factory. And for our subsequent examples we will make use of this utility class only, and we will invoke this get session factory to return the instance of session factory. And then we will create an executable class in which we will make use of the session factory instance, and we can call the open session method to obtain an instance of session, and then we can fire any query to verify whether the connectivity has been done with the database or not. So in our example we will fire this query select now, which will return the current date and time. And how we can fire that query? We can fire that query with the session instance and calling the create native query method dot get single result. Since this query is going to return a single result, we are calling here get single result method, and this will return a date and time, so we need to store it in a timestamp reference variable, and then we are printing this date and time. So in this tutorial we have seen what different files we are going to create to write our first Hibernate example, in which we will see how we can create the session factory instance and how we can fire a sample query using session. Thank you for watching this tutorial.